Okay, we are back on the South Florida Garden Show at about 3 minutes after 8 o'clock on this Sunday morning, the 4th of June. And Lance Walheim from Bayer Advance is usually joining us at this time, but this is his wedding anniversary, so he begged off for this week. He'll be on next week, so we'll do the Bayer giveaway of a package of Bayer products to the lucky caller, and we'll do that next week. So if you were just tuning in for that, you can turn the radio off, go back to bed, because it's going to be next week instead of this week. But right now, we got some people from our Dade County school system who I think are doing some great stuff. We've got Linda Lecht on here, and she is the president, the director of the Education Fund Food Forest for Schools program in our Dade County schools. And we have Eddie Recinos, who actually is a senior program manager for that project as well. What I'd like to do, first of all, because you can do it better than I can, is to ask you, Linda, to explain to our audience what the Education Fund Food Forest for Schools program is, how it came about, what it does, and what kind of results are you getting?
Right, sure, I'd love to. Well, first of all, the Education Fund is a nonprofit organization. We're affiliated with the school district, but separate. Our whole role is to support innovation in the public schools. And the Food Forest for Schools program is one of our initiatives, one of our larger initiatives. We've been around for more than 30 years, the Education Fund, sometimes the best kept secret. And in 2007, we were approached by Joanne Bander, who was involved with Slow Foods Miami at the time, to bring Alice Waters to Miami and to have the Education Fund start an initiative that was much like what Alice Waters, if folks know her, out in Berkeley, California, was doing. I said to Joanne, that's great, but this isn't Berkeley. Miami is very different.
True.
But we did bring, Alice Waters is the mother of schoolyard gardens. I mean, just an amazing woman. And we brought her here, and the Education Fund focuses on doing things with teachers. We really believe that the teachers in our school system are the key to improving the public schools. They're the front line. They're the ones that are working with the children. So we did, with the help of the Health Foundation of South Florida, which is an amazing organization, they gave us seed funding to, no pun intended, to actually work with 5 schools to see how we could take those 5 schools and help them start an entire edible garden programming. And so not just build an edible garden with children for after school or, just as an enhancement, but actually integrate it into the school day. So we worked with the 5 schools, trained the teachers on, first of all, we had to train them on gardening. Most teachers don't know gardening. We had to train them also on nutrition, because this was, for us, it's really a health program. We want children to eat their vegetables and fruits and herbs, and we want them to enjoy it and love it, be thrilled. And we also were working with the teachers and training them how to integrate that into all the different subjects they teach: reading, writing, math, social studies. Make a long story short, we quickly found that we could improve the students' eating habits by more than 50%. And we also found, and we probably knew this, that what the schools were really concerned about was the academic achievement, because they're, held to account based on certain scores. So we looked at science scores and were able to show that we were improving science achievement by almost 70%.
Wow. That's impressive.
Yeah, it was great. And it still is great. We quickly got to 51 schools because there was such a need. There was such a vibrancy about the work. And so many schools were just, knocking on our door saying, how can we get this? How can we get this? And folks like the Health Foundation of South Florida backed us to expand it to more schools, and others, the Peacock Foundation and many others. 2 years ago, maybe 2.5, we decided to transform the program. As any gardener knows, frequently, at least in the school system, you come back in August or September and you have to start all over again. You have to, clear out the garden beds. It's a lot of work.
Sure, it is, yeah.
And
using raised beds in most cases.
Raised beds, entirely raised beds. And so Eddie, who's with us today, he was the lead teacher at one of our schools. And in each of the 51 schools, as I said, we work with the teachers. We had lead teachers in each school running the program. And Eddie had gone to some workshops and done some studying, and he came up with a better way. And so what he had done is convert his 2 or 3 raised beds to an entire forest. So it was trees and vines and bushes. And the principal said to us, I thought it was just going to be a little flower garden.
Okay.
She says, let me know when the chickens arrive because I'm a little concerned here. But the thing about the food forest is it's a perennial garden. And it really does mimic a forest. It has winding paths. It's huge. It's ground cover. It's things at your ankles, at your knees, at your shoulders, and way above your head because it is a forest.
Sounds like a lot of work.
And it's a lot of work to initially put it in, right? So it's why we need partners. There's certainly a big cost, but it's very sustainable. And it's not a lot of work afterwards. So you don't come back in September and have to start it all over again.
Yeah.
It's there. When you come back in September, what you need to do is harvest because there's so much there. So we now have, of our 51 schools, 16 of them are food forests. And so not only are we using them for learning, and the students have continued to improve their eating habits, but the produce is going into the cafeterias constantly, and we're sending it home on a weekly basis to families who are getting lemongrass and yucca and, or basil and all sorts of amazing things. I mean, Eddie can tell you so much more. And one of the unique things about the food forest is Eddie and his team really look for things that grow well in this climate. And so we're not planting the normal tomatoes or eggplants or things that really don't do well. We're going into things that like moringa that people may not know of, but they're the plants for tomorrow. They're the cutting edge. I mean, you're going to be going to restaurants in the future, and that's going to be on your salad. And moringa has, more calcium and more protein than milk. So it's a really highly nutritious tree that you can eat almost all the parts of. So I should probably let Eddie explain it because,
We've moved away from a lot of the commercial crops just because we have such a unique climate here in South Florida. So it doesn't really work to grow lettuce and broccoli and the things that people typically grow. So we started focusing more on things that grow in the tropical belt around the globe.
Sure.
And we have some things that are exotics, but they do much better here in this climate.
Well, and you got students in the Dade County schools from these areas, so they know these things that a lot of kids who are not born in other places maybe are now getting used to and getting introduced to. That's kind of helpful, too.
Absolutely. So there's crops like yucca, malanga, and those types that really appeal, to the Cuban community in South Florida. But we have other crops that appeal to the Jamaican community, like callaloo, that grows almost like a weed here. It's hard to control once you get it started, and it's edible just the way that spinach is, but more nutritious than spinach. So these are the types of things we teach the students and the teachers, to empower them. So they're able to start their gardens, maintain them, and it's low maintenance. They're actually not doing more work in these food forests. They're reducing the amount of maintenance.
Who actually goes out and initially builds the gardens, the infrastructure for it?
Well, we always try to include the community, the teachers, the students. If they're not involved, then really we're missing the purpose behind all of it, because it is to empower them, to enable them to do it on their own eventually, to take over these gardens and to feel ownership over the gardens. So we do go in with our team. We have expert gardeners, a team of expert gardeners, but we also use volunteers from the community. And the way that we usually start one of the food forests is by having a big build day. So we'll have a lot of volunteers come out from the community, teachers, students, and we'll cover the entire field. Usually it's an open field of grass that's been there for years, not being utilized in any way, just taking up resources and water.
Sure.
So we cover it with cardboard, mulch, start planting trees right away. And from that point on, we had ground covers. We have a bush layer, an herbaceous layer, a vine layer. So there's several layers that we're managing, and they're all edible.
Who designed all this physically? I mean, that came up with the plans for these things?
Well, the food forest system is actually a very old system.
Oh, okay.
But the design of the gardens is something that I do.
Okay.
So I'm very involved in the design. I'm very hands-on in that.
In the various schools, what are the range of sizes in terms of square feet of total garden area that you're working with?
So our largest one is almost a quarter of an acre.
Okay.
It is huge, and it continues to grow.
What school is that in?
It's Twin Lakes in Hialeah.
Oh, okay.
It's an amazing little gem of a school. But some of them start off small, about 2,000 to, somewhere between 2,000 and 5,000 square feet, depending on what the school is willing to take on.
Pretty good size.
Right.
Yeah, most schools have an open courtyard that they have available.
Yeah, most schools have property. They just mow it and that's it. Yeah.
Right.
Exactly.
And that's the thing about the Food Forest program is, we think about all the land that the school system has, the district has, and most of it is either grass or cement. And, now there's this real understanding that we need to have more trees. We need to have really more forest. And so we're converting an asset into something that's good for the school, and it's good for the community, and it's good for the world. Because, when you plant a tree, you're really reducing the carbon load on the world.
Well, and I guess the trees you're planting are probably edibles, I presume, right? Fruit trees and so forth.
Absolutely, they're all edibles. And the great part is that they're not all fruit trees because you obviously have to wait for a fruit to develop.
Sure.
And they're seasonal sometimes. So we have trees where the leaves are edible. There is one that we're using now. It's the hummingbird tree, or it's called the agati flower.
Agati. Yeah.
It attracts hummingbirds. The flowers are edible. The young pods are edible. The leaves are edible, and they kind of taste like arugula. They have a nice peppery kick to them.
Bitter, yeah, a little.
Exactly. And they're a nitrogen fixer. So the tree itself is extremely low maintenance, a very fast grower. It'll provide shade. It just adds beauty to the area.
Sure.
So it's a wonderful tree to use.
And I think what you're doing is you're showing that with a piece of property, you can turn it into something that's not really productive at all and requires maintenance to something that's really productive and good. But I think one of the best parts is that you're teaching kids where food comes from. A lot of urban kids, I mean, I say urban, I just mean kids that live anywhere north of Homestead. They think all vegetables come from the grocery store, which they do to them, but now they're learning how they got there.
Well, that is the amazing thing. I mean, you see these children, and, I remember going into one class, and one of the children was telling me in one of the regular raised bed gardens where they were growing broccoli, she said, I thought that was like a Martian. I had no idea what it was because it looked to her like, something from outer space.
Wait till she sees a cauliflower.
Right. And, not only do they think things come from the grocery store, but unfortunately, a lot of our folks shop the middle of the grocery store packages. And in a lot of our schools, in the 51 schools, a lot of them are food deserts. So there's not even a major grocery store. More than 60% of our schools are in food deserts. Of the 51 schools, all but 2 are on the list of Florida for the highest poverty communities in the entire state of Florida. And across the 51 schools, 90% of our students are on federal food aid. So we're really getting to a population that needs this. And when we're able to put the produce into the cafeteria, and I have to say, it's really amazing because people may not realize this, but our school system is very innovative. The head of food and nutrition for the district, she runs 300, 400 cafeterias. I mean, this is a big job. And yet she's gotten really involved with our program at a hands-on level, really encouraging the cafeteria managers to get training. We're doing training for the cafeteria managers and the teachers, and to incorporate the produce from the food forest into the cafeteria. And we've been able to do it with all 51 schools, even those that aren't food forests. Of course, course, the food forests produce much more harvest than the regular gardens. So the other day I was at a school and I said to one of the teachers, "Who's that?" And they were picking, I don't know if it was, I think it was kale, and she said, "Oh, that's the cafeteria manager," and she was picking all this kale to cook it in the cafeteria. And we go into the cafeterias and you see these salads, and they have beautiful flowers on them, and the kids are so excited to take that salad when they come to the cafeteria because they're like, "You mean I can eat flowers?" And
oh God,
yeah.
I always thought I went to elementary school at Henry M. Flagler on Flagler Street over here. My favorite day was when they just had meatloaf and mashed potatoes. And it shows today, baby. I'll tell you. If they just said eat kale, I would have said, eat that. A lot of parents, when I was a kid, they would make their kids eat vegetables. My parents did not. I really regret that because I wish I liked more vegetables than I do. But I really don't. But, first of all, corn is a vegetable.
It is. Really is. It is.
Peas are vegetables.
Right.
And that's pretty much my limit on vegetables.
Well, I would invite you to eat a salad at any of our food forest schools. It'll be the best salad, and you might be hooked on vegetables.
Well, you know what? We had some folks from France come to see what we were doing, and they're with the food industry around the schools in France. And I thought, why are they coming here? There's a whole documentary on how the food in the schools in France is the best in the world.
Really?
And yet they came here, and they were traveling all over the United States, and they had come, I think, from Palm Beach down to see what we were doing here, and we fed them a salad at one of the schools, and they said this was the best salad that they had had since they were here in the United States.
Oh,
so
of course it wasn't French.
Right.
They wouldn't admit to that.
Yeah.
No.
but my point is that we frequently take people on tours of the food forest, and we have the students are tour guides, as well as Eddie and others, because they know so much about the different plants and trees and vines. But we had one little boy that was coming with his grandmother. The grandmother is an executive at one of the companies, and she wanted to see what we were doing, but she needed to bring him. And I thought, okay, here's this 10-year-old boy, and I figured he was going to be like you. And, he sort of said, ooh, vegetables at the beginning. And so we're walking around, and one of the tour guides talks about a green taco. And she grabs an edible hibiscus leaf, and then she puts some leaves from the cranberry hibiscus tree. And what were some of the other leaves that she had added?
There's the edible hibiscus, Filipino spinach, tons of garlic chives.
And the Okinawa spinach. And so she put all this. The edible hibiscus leaf is very big. It's like a wrap almost.
Right.
And she put it all in the middle and wrapped it up and was handing it out to people. And the little boy grabbed it and he started eating it. And his grandmother looked at him and said, "Do you like that?" And he's like, "Yeah, it's good."
She was surprised.
Yeah. So that's the other thing that happens at our gardens. One of the plants that we grow, or I guess it's a bush, right? Is cranberry hibiscus a bush?
Yeah, it's a bush.
Yeah, a bush. Right. Is that the leaves get stripped off the limbs because the kids love cranberry hibiscus, and so they're wandering through the food forest and they're just eating as they go. And it
really is a myth that kids don't like vegetables, and when they're involved in gardening, they feel that it's a reward. We see them sometimes when they're taking their harvest bags home, straight from the garden. They don't even wait to get home. They're eating them right out of the bags.
Oh, so you wouldn't have had that problem with me.
I bet you if we got you out to one of the food forests that you too, because when it's fresh, when it's local, that's why I'm sure a lot of your listeners grow their own gardens, because something fresh, local has so much flavor. And the thing is that we're not using the same, plants that have been, year in, year out planted, and I think that sometimes the tomatoes lose their flavor. I was just amazed at the flavor of the Cuban oregano. And one of our teachers made a pesto out of it. And we actually had an event that she was at Vizcaya, and she was serving the pesto with some of her students to all these foodies. And there were other restaurants there at Vizcaya that were, and that food was the one they remarked on the most.
Huh. Interesting. We got to take a little break right now, and we'll bypass our music stuff, Catherine, and we'll just go get the break out of the way. We'll come back with these folks from the forest of food here. Food Forest for Schools program, and it's interesting. I love it. We'll talk more right after this.
Battling bugs inside and out? Then it's time to get more from Bayer Advanced and Lowe's Home Improvement stores. Now you can buy Bayer Advanced Complete Brand Insect Killer for soil and turf and get a free bottle of Bayer Advanced Home Pest Plus Germ Killer, a $9 value. Complete works outside on your lawn, eliminating surface insects, including mosquitoes, in 24 hours and soil insects for up to 3 months. While Home Pest Plus Germ Killer handles the bugs inside your home. Lowe's and Bayer Advanced. Get more from the blue bottle. Always read and follow label instructions.
If you live in the Florida Keys or are planning a visit, you must experience the Key West Botanical Garden, located on College Road on Stock Island at Key West. This environmental treasure is a place of education, preservation, and natural beauty. A wonderful place to have that tropical garden wedding, too. The garden is a place to discover the native trees and plants of the Keys in their natural settings. Be introduced to the flora and fauna of the fabulous Keys and enjoy the native birds and butterflies in abundance in this tropical paradise. Become a member, even consider volunteering. Learn more by visiting keywestbotanicalgarden.org or by calling 305-296-1504. The number again, 305-296-1504. Visit keywestbotanicalgarden.org.
I drive for a living. I need my traffic reports.
Their traffic reports always get me to work on time.
Traffic, weekdays on 880 The Biz, where money talks.
And we are back at 8:25. We've got Eddie Recinos and Linda Lecht here from the Education Fund Food Forest for Schools program. And boy, are we learning a lot about that. It's interesting because, schools are great places for kids, but they've made them a lot better, I believe. And we were just talking off the air. I had questions coming across when I announced you're going to be here last week. I announced that you're going to be here this week. And people were asking me on the internet during the week, could they donate to your program? I had like 4 inquiries about that. And if that's possible, tell us how we do that, Linda.
So we're desperately in need of donations, to be quite honest. We had an investor for the past 2 years that now their budget has been cut drastically. So they can go on our website, www.educationfund.org. So education, easy, fund like money, FUND, .org for organization. They can also probably even Google Food Forest, and we're one of the first ones that comes up. So on our website, www.educationfund.org, there's a donate page. They can donate. There's also contacts on our About Us section. So if they want to talk about a larger gift, if they have a family foundation or it's a corporation that wants to do a sponsorship of one or more schools, or if it's just an individual that just has an abiding interest in making sure that this spreads, we are very interested in partnerships. We've had great support, and the Health Foundation of South Florida is continuing to support us. They believe in our work. But as I say, this other national organization, it was a corporation, and, sometimes corporation budgets shrink, as theirs did. And so they're getting out of supporting gardens entirely, not just in Miami, but over the entire country, unfortunately.
Perhaps the teachers union would like to get involved.
Well, you know what? The teachers union is very supportive of our work, but they don't have a lot of money either, to be quite honest.
Really? They take a lot from their teachers.
I can't speak to that. But,
I know. I don't want you to.
And you know what? We're trying to give back to the schools and not take from the schools. We have seen, I will be honest with you, we have seen when we can do something over a 10-year span or more, that the district does take it over and makes it a model. So we had a program where we were giving entire families technology and training them how to use it. This was back in the 1990s and early 2000s. And we helped over 10,000 families, and the district saw what we were doing. Now, it takes a while. You know, the district's like a big ship, so you don't turn the ship, quickly. And for good reason. You know, when it's a large organization, they need to look at something and make sure it's going to work. But they did take it over, and they actually referenced our program and used our model. The same thing happened with a way to work with parents and give them more information. The district took over our work. So if we can find folks that will help us over the next, 3 to 5 years, I do see the district taking this over as a model. That's our goal, is to have every single elementary school in at least Miami-Dade, but across the country, have a food forest on their property. Why not?
That's what I was going to say. Why not? They got the property for it. It's amazing how much property the school board actually has invested in these schools. And, of course, a lot of that property is for future expansion or whatever. So, maybe some of the food gardens will be moved or whatever later if they expand the schools. But right now we all know they mow a lot of grass that doesn't produce squat for the school system.
Right. So. And I don't see them expanding the schools that much. I mean, really the footprint that they have of the schools is what they're going to have.
Yep.
It's just that in Florida we had this abiding passion for having these, large tracts of grass, which really are not helping as much as they could, our community and our world. And that's the other thing about the food forest. While they're expensive to initially put in, so it can cost us up to $30,000 per school to put in a forest. But, you imagine if you landscape your entire yard, front yard, backyard, it's going to cost you a lot of money if you have, say, a half an acre. And you're going to put in, we put in pretty much full-grown trees because, children don't want you to put in a tree that's knee-height and then, it doesn't produce anything until they graduate.
Exactly. No, I would imagine you're using more mature trees especially for these things. I do that, too, because I'm getting old and I don't have time to wait for them to get... If you go to Fairchild Garden, which I love that place, and you go like for the Mango Festival coming up in July, and you'll see people who are like 75 years old walking out of there having bought a mango tree that high in a 3-gallon container, and you say, that person is an optimist. They're really optimistic because it's hard to wait that long. I'm impatient anyway. But Eddie, how do you do things like pest control, disease control? What methods do you use in these gardens?
The wonderful thing about the food forest system is that it's very much like a forest. It requires very little maintenance. Basically, the maintenance boils down to maintenance of pathways. When it comes to pest control, it's about building ecology.
Right.
So, we have lizards and birds that naturally come to the garden. There's, frogs, toads. They start to occupy the spaces, and it also becomes a learning opportunity. So the students see it as a science lesson. It's maintaining itself. There's a pest control. It's also fertilizing the garden. So it really helps to not work against nature, but invite those helpful critters into
That's what I was hoping to hear, because we didn't do a pre-interview or anything. But what's your background, Eddie, in this sort of thing?
So really, this is just a personal passion. The food growth and gardening is a personal passion of mine. I don't have any background as far as formal background in that. I was an art teacher for 11 years.
Oh, okay.
So my background is actually in art. And just being in the school system, I realized that the schools really needed this. Not just the students, but the teachers. I was spending so much time at work, more than at home. And I wanted to make work a place that was also beautiful, something that everyone looked forward to coming to. So,
what kind of art did you do, or do you do?
Oh, well, I'm a painter.
Really?
Yes. By training, that's what I'm a painter formally, but now I've just expanded into other things. So really, I see the food forest as a work of art and the designing of the food forest also.
Years ago, I used to buy and fix up and sell houses. And I tried one time, instead of buying art to decorate them, I bought some big canvases. I said, I can do that stuff. Didn't work out, did it, honey? I found out that giving me a canvas and some paints, there had to be more to it than that. It just didn't work. I just hated to pay for stuff to put on the walls. And then I figured, no, it's actually pretty cheap. It's not that expensive. But, no, that's interesting. So you're actually a teacher by profession?
Yes. So yeah, right. So I have 11 years of teaching under my belt in the elementary school, public elementary school system.
What elementaries did you teach at?
I was in Twin Lakes Elementary. Before that, I was volunteering at several elementary schools just to get the experience, but I ended up working at Twin Lakes for 11 years.
Yeah, that's a nice school. I know where that is.
Well, Eddie's very modest, though. I mean, he is asked by all sorts of organizations, including like even FIU and others, to come out and lecture and consult and give them advice, because he really is an expert in food forests.
There was a food forest class at FIU this past semester, which I was amazed that exists now. I was really happy to hear about that. So I was invited to give a presentation, and really what I was trying to impart on the students is that you do need that design background in order to be able to create an environment that works for people.
Yeah.
So it's not just about increasing productivity.
No, you got to plan this thing out to have everything you need, all the elements brought together in the right configuration.
Right.
Yeah,
and you need learning spaces and just reading spaces and places for people to walk and just enjoy the view.
I'm so glad that I had you guys on this morning. I really am, because I'm thinking, okay, they're growing some tomatoes, maybe cukes or whatever. You've taken it a whole different way.
Oh yeah, we're at a completely different level.
Yes, absolutely. So I'm really glad to, and the year round. I was wondering, food forest. I had never heard that expression before you got a hold of me. And I know, what is a food forest? I know what a forest is. A food forest, it's a garden. I saw some of the pictures of what you do and so forth, and they were mainly just raised beds and so forth. Like, why do they call it a forest? So now I know.
Right.
Now, you've got a website. People can see some nice photographs of this stuff.
They can see photographs. They can also see a video.
Oh.
And so they can see a 3-minute video that takes them through the food forest and that talks about some of the unique plants that we've and trees and vines and bushes. I always have to say that, because when people think of gardens, they think of raised bed gardens. But truly, you have to imagine in your mind a forest, maybe a tropical forest. And you have to imagine paths, and you have to imagine that even as an adult, there are going to be, most of it is going to be above your head, at your ears, by your shoulders, by your hips, knees, and feet. I mean, it is a forest. And we also have a Facebook page, so folks can like us and follow us on Facebook. It's Education Fund Miami. Is our Facebook handle. And we also have Instagram and Twitter, and so they can look at us up there as well.
I definitely recommend checking out the video. It's hard to just picture a food forest. It's a visual thing. Once you see it, you'll be amazed.
And they can get to the video on Facebook. So Education Fund Miami on our Facebook page, the video is right there, and that's probably the easiest way to access the video. It's 3 minutes, and it takes you through the forest and what we're doing.
And I really would recommend to you that Unbelievable Acres Botanic Gardens.org is a beautiful website. That place up there, Gene Joyner was the ag agent for Palm Beach County for 35 years. He retired about 5 years ago. He's lived on that property since he was about 5 years old. He started developing Unbelievable Acres in 1970. He has several statewide champion trees there, things like Jabotacaba and so forth, and he's got hundreds of banana plants there and so forth of all different varieties, all edibles, non-edibles, unbelievable. The ecology there it's about 2.5 acres with about a mile of walking pathways, and he loves when buses come there with children to go through the forest. It's just a marvelous experience all the time, because the more we get kids into knowing what nature is. They'll appreciate it if they're exposed to it. You're
Right,
proving that every
absolutely.
day, that's for sure. But, okay, you've made your appearance on the South Florida Garden Show. The problem with that is, for y'all, that we got to come back in the fall and we got to check up on what happened over the summer in the garden. So we'll actually know what's going on out there. And you're in 52 schools now.
51 schools. 51 schools.
Well, it'll be 52. So
right. And 16
I'll bring you
of
some
them,
giant sweet potatoes.
Yeah.
Oh, God.
Well, 16 of them are food forests. We really need your listeners' help to convert the rest of them to being food forests.
I think so. How many schools do we have in Dade County?
Well, we have over 370 schools in Miami-Dade County. We're focusing on elementary schools because elementary schools really are where children
that developmental process starts there. Yes.
Right. Especially their eating habits and their appreciation for nature, and also the curriculum at the elementary school level allows for them to be out in the food forest daily and using it in a way that enhances all of the subjects as well as their appreciation. I mean, truly, these food forests are entire eco labs, and so it's perfect for elementary school.
And let me
students.
guess, their conduct when they're out there is probably excellent, isn't it?
It is. It is truly a reward for the students. And one of the teachers was telling us when the kids get really fidgety in the classroom, even if it's not time to go out to the food forest, she'll just take them for a quick walk around the food forest, and they grab some of the leaves and they're eating
Settles them down.
And it completely settles them down. We've also seen children that, who are maybe in exceptional education, who are shy or completely nonverbal, come out of their shell. We had one little boy, this is a great story. He was never saying anything. The teacher wondered if he talked. And they were always going out into the food forest, and they were planting yucca. And finally, he couldn't take it anymore. And he said, Miss Sheriff, you're planting it wrong. You're planting it wrong. and he became the expert in yucca planting. And so she used him. She says, well, come up and show me what and tell the class. And now he's a tour guide. I mean, he's come out of his shell.
He does demonstrations now for tours. So.
Oh, God, isn't that wonderful?
And he has so much more pride because, he's found something that he's really good at and that others look to him. The other children all look to him. They say, he's the yucca expert. And
he's proud of it?
He is very proud of it.
And we've had kids start their own gardens at home. They start taking cuttings from the gardens in the schools and starting their own plants.
Oh,
it really is a life-changing program. We've affected so many lives with this program.
But you see, Eddie, one of the things that teachers never had a problem with Linda, she was never nonverbal.
This is true. But we have 34,000 children in our 51 schools. About 10,000 of them have the food forest. So we need to help the rest of them as a model for the district. And then we need to get to all 200 elementary schools. But if we can get to 50, that's a good portion of the elementary schools. It really will cause a tipping point.
Well, that's right. It gets a momentum then. And do you go out to local businesses around the schools and so forth to see about their support for these things? Does anybody tap into that?
Well, we do, but a lot of the schools use the support from their local businesses to do a variety of things.
Sure.
So we're frequently looking for someone that's a little bit more globally minded. I don't mean global across the United States or across the world, but want to help across Miami-Dade. So we've had a lot of family foundations get involved with us. We had a major corporation, and we've had some other corporations that had grants that supported us. We've had folks have their marketing budgets because we're great at win-win situations. You want exposure, we can provide it for you. In fact, the corporation that's budget got cut, the woman was really bemoaning it because we helped her make so many of her goals in terms of exposure and audience impressions. And we were in the Miami Herald. We've taught all our teachers to do social media, so they're tagging the companies and following them and doing all sorts of things. And we're on your radio show, and just
doesn't get better than this. I mean,
absolutely.
You can see Catherine, and she's all excited about hell. Good morning, Catherine. Oh, golly. Well, look, I want to thank you guys for coming in. I really do, because I think you make a great effort to do this stuff on your own time and all that stuff, and it's just wonderful. And yes, I wish that at Henry M. Flagler we'd have had such a garden. I'd be eating kale today. But anyway, I'll try my best to improve. But no, I like what you're doing. It is so much different than what I envisioned we'd be talking about, and so much more exciting than I figured it any way possible for it to be. I mean, I'm thinking gardening. Gardening, that's pretty simple stuff. But what you're doing is phenomenal things. And obviously you've had some great direction, some great work gone into it. And again, we're going to have you back in the fall and get an update on what's happening now with the Food Forest project out there with the Education Fund. Again, www.educationfund.org, and that will get you there. Or the Facebook thingamajigger, what's that?
Is Education Fund Miami, Education Fund Miami. And if someone contacts us, we can give you a list of the 100 different trees, bushes, vines that we have in our forest. So there's over 100 different individual varieties. So everything from the cotton candy tree to moringa to different kinds of bananas. It just goes on and on and on. And I leave your readers with this thought.
They're not readers; they're listeners.
Listeners, yes.
Some of them know how to read, but
hopefully.
Well, every day you learn something new, and I'm sure your listeners know that bananas are an herb.
Yes, they are.
And I had never realized this. I didn't also realize that they were one of the things that takes up so much resources. So we have taught the schools to do banana circles. And so in the middle of the banana circles is the compost. And even the cafeteria managers and the students bring their compostable plates from the cafeteria and all the, extra lettuce and things like that.
Sure.
And so our banana trees are over 7 and 8 and 9 and 10 feet tall and are taking up very limited resources because they have their own resource. So if you don't have a banana circle on your property, maybe you should consider having one.
We call it our banana plantation, and we actually use horse manure. So the bananas taste a little funky, but they're really, really good. We use a lot of horse manure.
Okay, well, we don't use any manure at all. No fertilizer, nothing.
No, very, very little soil amendments.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, hey, if you're doing the composting and all, that's a better way to go.
Exactly.
No, it
you
sounds
don't have
like
to turn it or anything. It just stays right in its place.
No, you got it together. Of course, the bananas get a little extra water, I guess, right?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, they're big on that.
In the banana circles, there's a pit in the center, and that acts as a reservoir. So it really minimizes the irrigation.
Are you separating the bananas when they crop up their pups? You're
absolutely,
digging
yeah.
up, move them around?
Yes.
Yeah, the whole
so
thing.
we leave 3 in each section, 3 generations. So they're always in constant production.
What kind of bananas are you doing? I don't have much time, but I want to get to that.
Well, we have the red bananas, double Mahoy. We have the Orinoco, which works as a plantain and a banana.
Yeah.
There's the one from Thailand. That's the ice cream banana. It's really sweet. The list just goes on and on.
Wow.
All types.
Fantastic. All right, guys, thank you very much. We'll see you back again, hopefully in the fall, okay?
Great.
Thank
Thank you.
Looking
We
forward
will
to
do
it.
it.